With the Route 1 Birds of Kanto all finished, Pidgeot and Fearow, how will the Route 1 Rodents play out? Raticate and its Alolan variant, Alolan Raticate. How fast can they beat Pokemon Moon in a solo run challenge? And who will end up victorious? Let's find out. Pidgeot and Fearow both ended up playing very similar runs because they both share a typing and very similar move pools. These two Pokemon that we're playing with today do have also pretty similar move pools, and the stats are a bit different, but they will be going for different strategies. Let's start off by talking about Cantonian Raticate. We have 55 HP, 81 attack, 60 defense, 50 special attack, 70 special defense, and 97 speed. That is a very good amount of speed to have in this game. We may not even need a plus speed nature. And also, our typing is normal type. We're also in the medium fast level up group as well. If you want to know why I mentioned the typing, is because Alolan Raticate is dark normal. Alolan Raticate has 75 HP, 71 attack, 70 defense, 40 special attack, 80 special defense, and 77 speed. If you quickly take a look at this image, this is a comparison side by side of their stats. Raticate basically loses 20 speed in the Alola region, and it gets given to its HP stat, and it also swaps around the offensive stats with the defenses. I mean, I guess it's just what happens when in the Alola region it looks like you gained a few pounds. I actually took a look at the weights just now. Kanto Raticate weighs 40.8 pounds, while Alolan Raticate weighs 56.2 pounds. So yeah, Raticate put on an extra, like 12 pounds, 16 pounds. Anyway, let's move on to the movesets. Both Alolan Raticate and Cantonian Raticate have the exact same level up set. They'll both start off with Tackle, Tail Whip, Quick Attack, and Focus Energy. Then we'll get Bite at level 10, followed by Pursuit, Hyper Fang at 16, which is a pretty decent move this early on, Assurance, Crunch, Sucker Punch, Super Fang, Double Edge, and Endeavor. If we wait until we get a Heart Scale, we could relearn Scary Face or Swords Dance, but we can just get the TM for Swords Dance later, and Scary Face is not going to be that useful. Even though the level up sets are identical, the TM sets are actually different. Both Alolan Raticate and Cantonian Raticate share very identical moves, but there are some key differences. For example, Cantonian Raticate will have access to Work Up, while the Alolan one does not, and instead will have Bulk Up. Other than Work Up versus Bulk Up, the only other difference with these movesets is that the Cantonian Raticate gets a bunch of Electric type moves, while the Alolan one gets a lot of Poison and Dark type moves. They'll both get Ice type moves, funnily enough. If you guys remember the previous Versus video, both Pidgeot and Fearow actually had a lot of problems against Teacher Emily with the Magnemite, but thankfully starting Generation 6 when the Steel type lost its resistance to Ghost and Dark moves, both of our Raticates can just take care of her no problem with Bite. And as we make our way to the normal type trial where we have to face an Alolan Raticate since we're playing Pokemon Moon, I'm going to talk about our ability, hidden power, and nature for Cantonian Raticate. We'll switch over to the Alolan one once we beat Hala. Our ability is actually going to be Guts. Basically, if we have a status condition, our physical moves will get a 50% power boost, and we could combine this with the Facade TM. Facade with Guts is going to be incredibly broken, especially since on the third island, there's a trainer we can defeat to get a Flame Orb. Until then though, we're going to have to deal with mediocre moves like Hyper Fang and Bite, but on the bright side, at least we get the Work Up TM. Anyway, our hidden power typing will be Hidden Power Ground for help against the Magnetons and the Magnezones, and our nature is not going to be a plus speed nature for once. It's actually going to be the Adamant nature for extra attack and less special attack. We'll have more than enough speed we need for the endgame, so going for a bit of extra attack seemed like the correct strategy. Also, on Route 2, the very first trainer is actually a beauty with a Ghastly. There are some Pokemon that will play in this series that only start with normal moves and will have to dodge her. It is possible to dodge this trainer, but it requires very precise movement on the left side of her. Thankfully, we'll have Bite in both of these runs, so there's no need to do that. I'm sure when we get to the evolutions we'll need to do that, considering the fact they don't get their stab moves until level 16. Then we can just make our way up to the Verdant Cavern and go take on the normal type trial. Unfortunately, neither one of these Pokemon will learn Brick Break, so we're just going to have to use our level up moves for this. The Alolan Raticate will get a defense boost in this fight. What I can do is use a turn 1 focus energy, so if I get a critical hit it will bypass the defense boost. Then I just spam quick attack and hope for the best. I guess a safer strat could be grinding to level 16 for Hyper Fang, but on my first attempt I do beat the Raticate. Now I just have to beat the Rattata in one hit, and thankfully I do. The thing is though, this fight could have been made easier with workup, but I actually didn't end up teaching it. I think I just forgot to. I easily could have gotten rid of Tail Whip. Oh well. And now, with the Alolan Raticate down, we still have to take on Hala at the very end. Both of our contenders are going to be weak to fighting, but the Alolan Raticate will be 4 times weak to fighting, and we will not have access to workup. So I think the Cantonian one is going to get a massive lead at this point. Before we start off the fight against Hala though, I will say though, I actually tried to go to the trainer school to get poisoned on Hala because my plan was to go into this fight with Guts, but we learned this during the run. Out of the 4 Kahuna fights, Hala and Hapu are the only ones where you get auto-healed before the fight even starts, not by an NPC beforehand. Therefore, if I try to go into this fight poisoned, it will not work. I found this out the hard way. But anyway, let's see how the fight actually goes. Hala leads off with Mankey. I'm going to go ahead and use a turn 1 Hyper Fang, just a 2-hit. Then on the Crab Brawler, I'm going to use Breakneck Blitz to see how much damage I can do. And unfortunately, it's not really that much damage. As soon as I see the Crab Brawler go for all-out plummeting, I just immediately reset. Before the second attempt, I do teach Workup in the place of Focus Energy. On the Mankey, I'm going to use Z Workup instead of Breakneck Blitz, just to get +2 to my attack. I'm going to hope that +2 Hyper Fang can knock out the Crab Brawler, and unfortunately it does not. That looks like very similar damage to Breakneck Blitz. This is going to be a problem. If it weren't for this auto heal, I could have poison going into this. This is the problem with Sun and Moon. They just have so many auto heals. I mean, most of the time it's great for speed reasons, but in the case of Guts, it's actually kind of a bad thing. On the third attempt, I was able to get Mankey to go for Focus Energy so I can enter the Crab Brawler at full health. I decided to go for Bite before Hyper Fang, and I actually get a flinch, and then Hyper Fang is able to knock it out thanks to a critical hit. I think the critical hit may have mattered, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I am able to defeat Hala with a real time of 25 minutes and 38 seconds. Okay, let's see how the Alolan version does here. The trainer school section goes pretty much identical to the Kanto Raticate, except I do get a blackout on the preschooler with a Bonsly, simply just because I don't have my Dark type move yet. I do grind in the grass though, just to make sure I have Bite for the Magnemite. And as I make my way to the normal type trial, we're going to have to take on the Alolan Raticate with Alolan Raticate, pretty much the same exact way as normal Raticate did. We're going to have a bit less attack, but we'll have some more bulk, so maybe that'll help us. But I'm going to quickly talk about our ability, hidden power, and nature. We're completely different in every aspect. For Alolan Raticate, instead of Guts, we're going to go with Hustle, our hidden ability. The reason we're going with Hustle is because I feel like without the Hustle boost, we're not going to be able to defeat Hala since we won't have access to Workup. How this move basically works is with all physical moves, the power will get a 50% boost, essentially equivalent to +1 in my attack. It does come at the cost of a 20% reduction in our accuracy. However though, later in the run, we could actually backtrack to the professor's house. There are some Corsola in front of his house. I believe it's after you clear out the water trial. You can actually get yourself a wide lens, so I could sort of reduce the harm that Hustle does, but I won't have access to it right now. Our hidden power typing will actually be Hidden Power Grass. We're not really going to have any problems against the Magnezones and Magnetons, but I'm going to need Hidden Power Grass. It's going to help us with the Wishy-Washy fight, and it'll help us with EV training on Pikipeks or Zubats if we do it. And our nature is going to be Jolly for extra speed and less special attack. I feel like I don't need to explain that. Also, in front of the berry tree by the Verdant Cavern next to the Pokemon Center, I actually do get one reset in front of this tree because I am trying to find a Chesto Berry, which I do find on the second attempt. From now on, in these runs, if I ever need a cherry or a Chesto Berry for later in the game, instead of just talking to a bunch of trees and just hoping I find it, and not risking the chance of me not finding one, I'm actually going to start safe scumming the first 2 trees on this island so I can make for 100% sure I'll have access to those berries. On the Alolan Raticate fight, what I'm going to do turn 1 is actually use Focus Energy. Since I don't have access to Work Up, I feel like I'm going to need to fish for crits. I'm essentially just going to spam Quick Attack and pray. But at least since we have extra HP and bulk, we are able to defeat the other Raticate with pretty decent HP to spare. I just hope I can defeat the normal Rattata. Unfortunately, I keep getting flinched, and at the very last minute, at 1 HP remaining, Quick Attack actually gets a critical hit thanks to the Focus Energy, and I'm able to win. That was actually cutting it very close. It was mainly because of the flinches. Before I can take on Hala though, I do need to be level 18 for damage ranges. I did experiment training in a bunch of different places. I also experimented doing some SOS training on Zubats, but it's just way too early for that to be efficient, so I instead just train in the grass on Route 3. The grass on the Route 3 has pretty okay encounters. The best place in the wild to train would actually be the Melee Meadows because of the Oricorios in the wild. Although I didn't really have the best odds against them, so I opted to just stick to Route 3. As soon as I get level 18, I'm going to head into the Hala fight with the Normalium Z. Right away, turn 1 on the Mankey, I go for a Hyper Fang, and I get a miss thanks to Hustle, but also thanks to the fact that the move is inaccurate anyway. On the second attempt, I land the Hyper Fang in one shot. Now I'm going to go for Breakneck Blitz. Breakneck Blitz will get the Hustle boost, but Z moves always skip accuracy checks. Then last up is the Makuhita. I go for a single bite into a Hyper Fang. I don't get a flinch, but I am able to defeat Hala and get a real time of 28 minutes and 48 seconds. Comparing these two splits so far, the Cantonian Raticate is ahead of the Alolan version by about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. That is a pretty large lead for the first island, but there is always the chance that the Alolan Raticate can catch up, because I think in the later stages of the game, until we get Swords Dance, I think Bulk Up is going to be a better setup move than Work Up. But we're actually just going to stick to the Alolan Raticate for a bit, and we'll just see how well it does on the second island. The second island, after all, is where we will get Bulk Up, but not until before the Olivia fight. We still have to go through all the trials first. Before I leave Melee Island, there are a few things I need to get. I am actually going to be getting the leftovers with the Alolan Raticate, simply just because our stats aren't the best compared to other species we've played, and the leftovers are extraordinarily good for SOS training. Thankfully, it only takes me 3 minutes to find a Munchlax. I'm also going to backtrack to the Melee Meadows and get myself the Expert Belt. I also do pick up the Shell Bell in City Hall as well. There's probably no use for this, but I can always just sell it for $2,000 if I need to. In Hiahia City, inside of the Pokemon Center, I'm going to spend $10,000 and get the TM for Protect. The move Protect is mainly used to block Guzma's Golisopod's first impression. I also head my way north to Paniola Town, defeat the rival here, and then I can also fight this guy's Tauros and get myself the Scope Lens. When you hold the Scope Lens, in addition to using Focus Energy, all of your moves will be guaranteed crits. This will be very good for the Wishy-Washy fight, especially since it has a defense boost as well. I could also use Hidden Power Grass on it, but I think with Hustle, I think the Focus Energy strat is going to be better. Before I take on Wishy-Washy though, I'm actually going to do some SOS training on Pikipeks. It probably has to do with the fact that I need level 33 for Olivia, and I actually need quite a lot of EVs. I actually want 152 attack and 152 speed EVs by the end of the game. So I figured now is probably a good time to get some attack training in. And the good thing about Hidden Power Grass is I can use Hidden Power Grass to help weaken the Pikipeks to get them into red health. What does make the Pikipeks annoying for Alolan Raticate is I am 4 times weak to fighting moves like I've mentioned earlier, and these guys can have Rock Smash. I am able to get a huge training session in, and I end SOS training with 96 attack EVs, but it's also not just the attack EVs why I decided to do Pikipek training early. I am actually also going to get Crunch. I think having Crunch is going to be needed for the Wishy-Washy fight, but honestly, I think Hyper Fang would have done just fine, but I would have needed Crunch for the Marowak training anyway, so I still think this was a good play. Alright, let's go take on Wishy-Washy. This guy has been proving himself to be a threat as of late with some of my unreleased videos yet for Pokemon Moon. I record a lot of these runs ahead of time. If the Wishy-Washy summons Alomomola, this fight can be pretty bad. But with Focus Energy, Scope Lens, and Crunch, this whole fight is an absolute joke. With the Wishy-Washy defeated, I can make my way down to the Fire Trial. But on my way there, I do pick up a rare candy and a Carbos. I can use the Carbos to get some Speed EVs. Then inside the Royal Avenue, I'm going to go ahead and get another rare candy, clear out the Battle Royale place, get myself the TM for rest, and we're going to go ahead and start training on the Marowaks. Having access to Crunch will actually make these Marowaks a one-shot, so the training here will go extraordinarily quickly. The reason all of this training is going to be worth it is because, as I mentioned earlier, this thing needs level 33 to deal with Olivia. It's probably a little too high of a level, but since this training is super duper quick, especially if you hold leftovers while doing it, it's not going to be that bad. Plus, if we can be a higher level for the Picky Peck training when we resume it later, we'll be able to more reliably one-shot the ally Picky Pecks. I continue the Marowak training until I get one Blackout, and by the time I get that one Blackout, I'm level 30. I decide at this point this is probably enough training. The defense EVs will also come in handy for later fights, especially against Olivia and a bunch of the Elite Four. We're definitely ready to take on the Totem Salazzle. Thankfully though, the Totem Salazzle does not have a boost to its defense, just its special defense. Unfortunately though, I do end up getting burned on the Hiker's Magmar, and here's the thing, I am not running Guts with this thing. There is no way I'm winning this fight, so I end up blacking out, coming back to the fight, and completely destroying Salazzle without the burn. As soon as I have access to Charizard, I'm actually going to fly back to the professor's house, and I'm going to talk to these Corsola and end up getting myself a wide lens. This will boost the accuracy of my moves by 10%. This should hopefully negate the impacts of Hustle. When you combine the wide lens with Hustle, against a move like Hyper Fang for instance, with Hustle, Hyper Fang is 64% accurate, but with the wide lens, it does get boosted to 70. So in the end though, I am still less accurate than if I didn't have Hustle, but this will still help out. I do end up getting a Blackout though on this trainer's Miltank because it went for Bide, I missed a move, and that allowed it to kill me. From here though, we could just rush straight to the Grass Trial. There's really nothing else in between. Against the Lurantis, it does have X-Scissor, which I am weak to. Thankfully, it seems dead obsessed on using Solar Blade, so I can go ahead and do half damage with Crunch. It does heal up with Synthesis, unfortunately, and I do end up missing a Crunch. This is generally how a lot of these fights go when you're using Hustle, but the thing is, we absolutely needed it. But while doing the training though, when I got to level 29, I got access to the move Sucker Punch. This will outspeed the opponent and land damage if the opponent was going to go for an attacking move anyway, which a lot of the Pokemon in this game generally do go for attacking moves, so Sucker Punch is going to be a pretty valuable move. Not as valuable for the Kanto version, but very good for the Alolan version, especially with Stab. With the 3 trials on Akala Island done, we can head our way to Coney City, and we can get ourselves the TM for Bulk Up. Unfortunately, regular Raticate does not learn Bulk Up, but it had access to Work Up. It doesn't have any right to complain. But at least we can finally use a good setup move now. By the time I get to Olivia, I am unfortunately just shy of level 33, but I think with access to Bulk Up, it should be fine. I'm going to go into the fight with a Cherry Berry, and let's see if I can win first try. On turn 1 against the Nosepass, I go for Bulk Up and it does hit me with Thunder Wave, which the Cherry Berry does heal. This probably wasn't the right decision, just because it could have easily used another Thunder Wave, but thankfully she didn't. Next up is the Boldore. It's actually very rare for the Boldore to be sent out second. There really isn't much Boldore can do anyway. Similar thing with the Lycanroc. Our good bulk just makes good work of her entire team. And Alolan Raticate defeats Olivia's team with a real time of 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 31 seconds. Let's see how the Kanto Raticate does on this island. The Kanto Raticate actually gets a lot luckier with the Munchlax. I end up finding the Munchlax literally less than a minute after starting the search, so that was very convenient. Unfortunately though, I end up knocking it out with Quick Attack. You want to know why that happened? When you use the Y button to get to your Pokeball menu and you spam Y, it defaults back to the fight option. I didn't know this at the time, so I ended up accidentally knocking it out. And rather unfortunately, it does take me a few more minutes to find a second Munchlax. I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally do what I did last time. But I will know for the future, if you use the Y button to use the Pokeballs, do not spam A while catching something. You will kill the opponent. Thankfully though, after the leftovers, we can just leave the island. We don't need the expert belt at all. Or if we do need it, we can just fly back later. In the Paniola Ranch, I do get access to the scope lens and I do choose to go get it, but this was probably a waste of time since I did delete focus energy earlier. I mean, I can always just sell the item for $2,000 for vitamins if I need to. That was probably why I got it. For the Totem Wishy-Washy, even though I'm not using focus energy scope lens, Z Workup to just get +2 attack will make great work of his team, especially since we're not dealing with hustle. I do get myself the TM for rest, and as I prepare to start fighting the Marowaks, I do run into a problem. I do not have access to Crunch like the Alolan Raticate did, and without Guts, it ends up being a 3-shot. The Marowak though does burn me. I'm going to see if the burn will allow me to one-shot with Bite, and unfortunately I do not, so this training is going to go pretty slow compared to how it went for the Alolan version. Thankfully though, it seems like when I hit level 25 over a damage rounding threshold, Bite with the Guts boost does start one-shotting them, so I do end up not taking burn damage. So at least this training will go pretty efficiently now. Not only that though, but I also have Crunch. I mean, when I get to the Salazzle, I'll probably need to black out because of this burn, but we'll see. I end up just taking a blackout during the first phase of the Marowak training, and when I come back, I can answer the quiz correctly, defeat the Hiker's Magmar. I actually do hope for a burn. Unfortunately, I do not get burned, so I'm going to have to take on the Salazzle without Guts. On turn 1 on the Salazzle, I go for Hyper Fang doing more than half as I get hit with Toxic. Well, you know what that means. Guts boost. I use Hyper Fang to knock out the Salazzle, and I quickly knock out the Salandit as well. I skip obtaining the Wide Lens, and I don't get a reset to that girl's Miltank, and I can make my way towards the Grass Trial. Before I take on Lurantis though, I need level 33 for Olivia, just like Alolan Raticate sorta did, so I'm actually going to do Picky Pack training. The EVs that I need aren't as extreme as the Alolan Raticate. I just need 132 attack, 100 special attack, and 140 speed. For the 100 special attack, we can just buy calcium, but I am going to need a little bit of Picky Pack training. And I don't have Hidden Power Grass for the small chip damage, but instead I'm actually using Grass Knot. You get the TM for Grass Knot inside the Lush Jungle, so that was the reason I didn't do the training until now. And if you guys want to know why the Leftovers is so efficient with SOS training, I'm actually able to go from 34 attack IVs all the way up to 102 attack EVs. I may have said IVs, my bad. Anyway, I'm able to get that much EVs in with just one singular SOS training session. The Leftovers is the only way that's possible. Okay, now I'm ready for Lurantis. Right away on turn 1, I go for Sucker Punch, knowing the Lurantis was going to go for Solar Blade. On turn 2, I go for Workup, and then I see if Hyper Fang knocks out the Lurantis, and unfortunately, it ends up missing. So yeah, that's annoying. Okay, attempt number 2. I go for Z Workup instead of Sucker Punch, just because I think Sucker Punch might be a trap. I'm going to see how much Hyper Fang will do at +2 to the Lurantis. And unfortunately, it does not one-shot, but it does leave it in red health. I should have gone for Sucker Punch there. I was pretty stupid for not doing that. I get another blackout thanks to hitting myself in confusion with Supersonic, but I am able to defeat this trial on the 3rd try, and now we can make our way towards Olivia. Before I can make my way to Olivia though, I need to do Zubat training. You may be wondering why I need to do Zubat training. The reason is because I'm not level 33 yet, and since I need speed EVs anyway, and a decent bit of speed EVs at that, I decided to train on Zubats. But looking back, I'm not sure how good of a decision this was. These Zubats give hardly any experience. I could just fight Fearow on the next island for 2 EVs apiece if I need to get experience and speed EVs. I think what I should have done was probably just get an extra workup in and see if I could win at a lower level. This probably wasn't the right call. I do the Zubat training until I get 100 Speed EVs, and I decide now I'm going to go take on Olivia. Olivia leads off with Nose Pass. I'm going to continue holding the leftovers, and I'm going into this fight intentionally paralyzed. There was probably no reason to do this. The Nose Pass was going to paralyze me anyway. I decided to go for some workups solely because of the fact I am at level 30 instead of 33 like I originally wanted, so I felt like I needed the extra setup, although I do end up getting unlucky with not being able to move against the Nose Pass. Next up is the Boldore. It does hit me for quite a lot of damage, but I am able to survive in low health, and then next up is the Lycanroc. I go for Sucker Punch. I can't move because of paralysis, and I get killed with Continental Crush. If it weren't for that, I would have won. I end up getting some quite horrendous luck with paralysis until I'm able to finally defeat Olivia and get myself a time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 16 seconds. So right now in this race, the tides have completely turned. Raticate Alola is actually ahead of the Kanto version by about 11 to 12 minutes. I think what really helped this was getting stabbed with dark moves, as well as getting bulk up for Olivia, making it a lot better. Plus, I think having the extra bulk did help with the Picky Peck training. I'm honestly not sure at this point if the Kanto Raticate can catch up, but when we get to the next island, we will end up having access to Facade with the Flame Orb and Guts, so it will start just killing everything, but we're going to have to wait a little bit to get to that strategy. And just because I really want to see how well Guts Facade's going to do, we're going to continue with the Cantonian Raticate for the next island. Before I set sail to the Aether Foundation and the third island, I'm actually going to surf to the side of the Hollow Grand Resort. There's a little island right here containing the Black Glasses. This will boost the power of Dark-type moves by 20%. The Alolan Raticate will pick this up as well. After we clear out all the Aether Foundation stuff, I have to fight my rival right away inside of Mali City. I do easily one-shot the Raichu, and unfortunately, I just don't really have a good answer for the Flareon, so I end up losing on the Flareon. Afterwards though, inside of the Mali City Pokemon Center, I buy myself the TM for Facade and Swords Dance. I did debate buying U-Turn, but I end up going against it. Facade is definitely going to be a better normal type move than Hyper Fang. Plus, I don't have Hyper Fang anymore anyway, I needed to teach Sucker Punch. Plus, I can also teach Swords Dance in the place of Workup. Right next to the Mali City Library, I go enter this building right here, get myself all the Weather Rocks to sell for $2,000 each, then I can get my way to the top of Mount Hakanali. I enter the Pokemon Center, sell pretty much everything I can, and I'm going to go ahead and buy some vitamins. And today's vitamin of the day is 7 calcium. Remember how I said earlier I'm going to need some special attack? Yeah, that's what the calcium is for. I'm going to be using some special moves later in the game, and we do get access to quite a few of them. I'm actually going to go back down to Route 10 and actually fight all these Fearos in the tree. I not only need the experience, but I also need access to some more Speed EVs. I need roughly 140 Speed EVs. Plus, I have to fight Mimikyu at level 43. I need a decently high level for that fight. I don't think the Alolan Raticate will need as high of a level thanks to Stab Dark moves, but the Cantonian Raticate definitely does need more training. After I do quite a bit of Fearow training to get 140 Speed EVs, I actually go back to the Paniola Ranch and actually just fight the Pokemon in the wild here. Almost everything in this grass, with the exception of Miltank, give attack EVs. I'm not going to train on Picky Pecks because I'm just too powerful for that at this point, and I just need a little bit of attack. I only need 132 at a minimum, and as soon as I get the 132 attack EVs, I decide, you know what, I think now is the time to take on Vikavolt in the Electric Trial, so why don't we see how it goes. Against the Vikavolt, I start off by using one Swords Dance, and I try to go for Sucker Punch, but Spark ends up completely destroying me, which was mainly because it used Charge, which doubles the power of your next electric move. Before I go back into the Vikavolt trial, I realized I might actually need Guts, so I actually fly back to the trainer school, find myself a Grimer, wait for it to eventually poison me with Poison Gas, then I can go back. I don't want to do paralysis because I don't want to have to deal with spamming Sucker Punch for a fight again. You all saw how that went with Olivia. As soon as I get back to the Vikavolt while poisoned, I go ahead and use Facade, and Facade just completely one-shots it. Yeah, that's how powerful Facade is, especially when you pair it with Guts. On Guzma's Golisopod, I try going for Sucker Punch to see if it out-prioritizes First Impression, and unfortunately, it does not. Well, I guess it's better to learn that now. On the second attempt, I try going for one Swords Dance into using Crunch, but it doesn't even do enough to activate Emergency Exit, so I guess I'm gonna have to teach Protect now. I should have just kept the status condition, I'm not sure what I was thinking. But with access to Protect, this fight does go a lot better. I should just always use Protect for this fight. I don't know why I think I could work around it. I'm still gonna need plenty of training though for Mimikyu. By the time I fight most of the good trainers right before the trial starts, I'm only level 38. So I'm gonna need to start training in the wild grass here just right by the Pokemon Center. This training ends up going pretty inefficiently, but I ended up coming up with a pretty good idea. I'm gonna go back to the trainer school, get myself poisoned, and with access to Facade and Crunch with Guts especially, I can just one-shot any wild Pokemon and not take a single point in poison damage, so this training goes incredibly quickly. I do decide though to just stop the grinding at level 41 and use 2 rare candies to get level 43. I'm gonna have to do some extra training in the canyon if I choose to go for this strat, but I think it'll be worth it. So now, let's go take on Mimikyu. I do go into the fight poisoned. I'm gonna go ahead and use one Crunch just to break the substitute. I could have used Sucker Punch, but there was a chance I could have gone for a Mimic. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use one Swords Dance. I don't know if this Swords Dance was necessary, but the Mimikyu just went for Mimic turn 1 anyway. Then I can use Sucker Punch to one-shot. So yeah, that was actually pretty good. Looking back, I don't think the Swords Dance was necessary. I'll go ahead and do the calculations right now. Okay, so the Swords Dance was necessary. After one Swords Dance, Crunch will do 93 to 110% damage, so it was going to be a range, even with Guts. Now I can take on all the trainers in the Ula Ula Meadows, and I can fight this golfer right here. You can only fight this guy after you fought all the trainers in the area. As soon as I defeat him, I will gain access to the Flame Orb. This will essentially guarantee me I will always have a status condition to pair with Facade. Now, our good moveset is just going to completely destroy most of this game. You guys have no idea. I clear out Po Town without any issues, and before I take on Nanu, I actually go into the wild right here, just skip one turn on a wild Fearow, let the Flame Orb activate, then run away. Then with my Pokemon now burned, I can hold the Adrenaline Orb and start the Nanu fight. Nanu leads off with Sableye. I'm going to go ahead and just go straight up for one Swords Dance. I do get hit with Fake Out though, so I go for one more Swords Dance, get +2, and then I can start the sweep. I'm going to go ahead and use Sucker Punch for the outspeed and the one hit. Next up is the Krokorok. My attack goes down to +1, but now I will outspeed and one-shot the Persian with Facade. And the Cantonian Raticate can beat Nanu with a time of 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 31 seconds. Let's see if the Alolan Raticate can keep up its lead. As soon as I enter Mali City and I fight the rival, I am actually able to defeat his entire team. That was actually kind of surprising. I'm also going to go ahead and purchase the exact same TMs, Facade and Swords Dance. We will be using Facade in some parts, but without Guts, it won't be as good. On top of Mount Hakanali, Malane's pretty easy. I can get myself the Comet Shard to sell for $30,000. I'm going to go ahead and purchase some vitamins with this Pokemon as well. All I purchase are just a couple of Carbos, an Adrenaline Orb, and just some potions and repels. I don't want to buy too many vitamins just because I don't want to accidentally get too close to the threshold, just because I am still going to need at least 150 EVs in both speed and attack. To guarantee I can get the EV thresholds that I need, I will actually train on Route 10 on all these Fearows. I am also going to need a pretty decent level for Mimikyu because this Pokemon is actually going to be weak to Play Rough, which is a fairy type move. So I'm going to need the EVs and the experience. So I am going to prioritize Fearos. With the speed training done, I go see if I can do Picky Pack training, and thankfully I still can. Thanks to my nature lowering special attack, Hidden Power Grass is able to leave these Picky Packs in red health. Well, if they're not holding orange berries, that is. So I can easily do my remaining EV training through SOS, which is way more efficient. The reason I didn't do this with the Cantonian Raticate is because I only needed like 20 EVs. It just was not worth setting up SOS. As soon as I end up getting 152 speed and 156 attack, I'm going to go back to the trainer school as well and get poisoned off of a Grimer. Here's the thing though, even without Guts, Facade will be better than using a Normalium Z move. I one-shot thanks to Facade. The one unfortunate thing is that the Flame Orb will not be useful for Raticate because without Guts, our attack drop thanks to Burn will not be ignored. It will still boost Facade, but it will not boost our other moves. I do also make a quick trip back to the Hollow Grand Resort, get myself the Black Glasses and the Attract TM. I will make sure to use Protect on Guzma this time. Thankfully, I did not have to use 2 rare candies with Alolan Raticate to get level 43. I was actually able to get the levels naturally, which kinda surprised me. I'm gonna go into the fight with the Wide Lens, just to hopefully negate the chances of me constantly missing thanks to Hustle. What I'm going to do is use Crunch to break the disguise. I do get hit with Play Rough. I probably should have gone for Sucker Punch. I'm going to also go ahead and use a Swords Dance, but obviously things don't go that good. On the second attempt, instead of going for Sucker Punch, I just go for Crunch, thankfully getting a Play Rough miss. Now I'm going to go for one Swords Dance as Play Rough does a buttload of damage and I get put to sleep with Hypnosis. So yeah, that was great. I win on the third try thanks to just getting a turn 1 Mimic. That's how a lot of these winning Mimikyu fights go. We're going to go ahead and skip straight to the Nanu fight since Po Town was pretty uneventful. We're going to go into this fight with the Buginium Z and U-turn. On the Sableye, I'm going to go for Protect to block Fake Out. Then I can go ahead and knock it out, then just go ahead and use one U-turn on the Krokorok. Then on the Persian, I go ahead and use Protect to block another Fake Out. I then go for Savage Spin Out, and then I can get a Nanu split of 1 hour, 58 minutes, and 55 seconds. The reason I didn't go with Swords Dance and instead went with Protect is simply because, thanks to Hustle, I really did not need Swords Dance. I just had to make sure I actually landed my moves. And going for Protect to block Fake Out does make sense. And looking at these splits now, Alolan Raticate has maintained its lead. It is leading against the Kanto variant by about 10 minutes. I actually thought going into these two runs that the Alolan one would be far worse simply because of the 4x weakness to fighting, but I think I just really underestimate the power of Hustle and getting Stab Crunch. And right now, both Pokemon are going to head to the Aether Foundation, clear out a ton of trainers on Pawnee Island as well, and then just beat Hapu. But before we go to the Aether Foundation, both Pokemon are going to be getting a really good TM move. So let's continue with Alolan Raticate. I'm going to go back to the restaurant in Mali City, get myself the TM for Return. This was the reason I played at nighttime. Return is pretty much going to be one of my best moves. Unfortunately, Return just is not that good of a move in Sun and Moon. It's only really great if you get stabbed from it. And with access to Return and Crunch, the Aether Foundation is honestly a complete joke. I also do hold the Darkinium Z, pretty much just in case I need to do extra damage on something, like Faba's Hypno, or maybe the Muck in the basement. I do also beat Guzma pretty easily. I end up getting one reset on him simply just because of a Hustle Crunch miss. I am able to defeat the first Lusamine battle as well. Alrighty, time for Pawnee Island. For both Raticates, I am going to need level 55 to deal with Hapu, so I'm going to do a bunch of training in the Pawnee Wilds. With the Alolan Raticate run, I actually did experiment training on Exeggutor Island instead of the Pawnee Wilds, because the Exeggutor Island has the chance of Exeggutors, which give very, very good yields. I think in the end though, training here is not worth it, simply because the chances of finding Exeggutors are just way too high. On the Pawnee Plains, it's like a 10% chance, but on Exeggutor Island, it's a 40% chance. I don't think the chance of finding Exeggutors is worth the constant encounters of these low-level Pokemon. I get level 55 off of the Team Skull Grunts, and before I fight Hapu, I'm going to hold the Fightinium Z with Return, Crunch, Bulk Up, and Sucker Punch. So why don't we see how the final Kahuna fight goes. Against the Doug Trio, I'm going to use Z Bulk Up. This will get me +2 attack and +1 defense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start going for one more Bulk Up and just sweep with Sucker Punch. Thankfully, Hapu's Pokemon pretty much love attacking, so it ends up being pretty good. I do go for Return on the Mudsdale because I don't think Sucker Punch was going to do enough damage. I end up missing Return on the Gastrodon, but the Gastrodon just missed Muddy Water on me in return, so it ended up working out in the end. Then I can use Sucker Punch on the Flygon and defeat Hapu. However, I'm not going to change Pokemon just yet. The fourth Kahuna fight comes just so quickly after the third, it makes more sense to switch back before we start the final 8 trainers starting at Lusamine number 2. So I'm going to talk about how Raticate goes through the Pawnee Canyon. The Pawnee Canyon is pretty much an identical section of the game compared to the Aether Foundation. You just have to fight a buttload of trainers. You may have to fight some wild Pokemon as well, and at the very end, usually before or after the Dragon type trial, you can just go ahead and use all of your rare candies to get the level you need for the league. And for Alolan Raticate, after I use 12 of my rare candies, I'm going to want level 71 for Lusamine, so I'm going to need to train to level 59 in the canyon, which is just about 4 levels. I do get a reset to the first trainer in here, Veteran Harry. I get one reset, but as soon as I teach Swords Dance over Bulk Up instead, the fight goes a lot better. Because of another hustle miss, I do get a blackout on one of the punk kids with Pangoro, so that was pretty annoying. I do get another blackout on one of the final veteran trainers, the woman with the clef key, and I do get a couple more blackouts on the final veteran, Veteran Eric. This guy is honestly the second toughest trainer in the canyon. After getting my second loss to him, I decided to just use all my rare candies now to get level 71 for this guy. And obviously at this high of a level, we're just going to completely destroy this guy. And we're probably going to destroy Komodo, but I am going to play the intro just because we are 4 times weak to fighting, and that thing does like using Sky Uppercut. So why don't we see how the final trial goes? You know, the one I almost never play an intro for. On turn 1, I go for Swords Dance, and Sky Uppercut just straight up one-shots me. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting. I could hope for a Sky Uppercut miss, or maybe I should have gotten a Chople Berry. I just keep doing this hoping for a turn 1 Protect or something, but I think if Sky Uppercut's going to be a guaranteed one-shot, I don't think it's ever going to go for Protect. As soon as I realize that, I go back to the Pawnee Wilds right here, talk to this tree, get myself a Chople Berry, and I'm going to go back into the fight. When I come back to this fight with a Chople Berry, Sky Uppercut only does like 60% of my health instead, and now I have a Swords Dance. This will allow Return to one-shot the Komodo and the Hakamoto. So yeah, it's pretty embarrassing when you need a Chople Berry, not for Hala, but for Komodo. That's just pretty sad. I can then enter the Ultra Space Wilds and save my game before Lusamine and the final 8 trainers with a real time of 2 hours, 40 minutes, and 4 seconds. Let's see how the Kanto Raticate gets up to this point. We're just going to completely destroy everyone in the Aether Foundation, and it's not even going to be close. In fact, check this out on Guzma right here. He leads off with his Golisopod. Remember how much I struggled with him before? Check this out. I'm going to go for Facade, and it completely one-shots that thing. So yeah, it's just that powerful. I don't have any resets in the Aether Foundation, nor on Pawnee Island as well, at least to trainers. I do get a couple of resets at the Berry Tree because the Cantonian Raticate will need a Chople Berry. It took me a couple of tries to get one to spawn. I also get myself up to level 55, and I do want to go into Hapu Burned, but it was also during this run I found out that, just like with Hala on the first island, right before you fight Hapu, you get a forced heal, so you lose your status condition. I'm still holding the Flame Orb though, so I will just have to get burned during the fight. So we're just going to see how well this goes against the Doug Trio. Right away on turn 1, I decided to go for Swords Dance, and thankfully the Doug Trio just went for Sandstorm. I do end up missing Sucker Punch because of Sand Veil, but I am able to survive an Earthquake. Next up is the Mudstale. I go ahead and switch on over to Facade. I am very worried that the Sandstorm is going to kill me, and that's exactly what happens. So yeah, Sand Veil caused a reset. I am able to win on the second try anyway, simply just because I don't get a Sand Veil miss with Sucker Punch. I also end up having 0 resets or blackouts in the entirety of the Pondy Canyon, but unfortunately, at the very last minute on Veteran Eric, I do end up getting a reset. Mainly just because I didn't really have a good answer for the Golem. I believe I ran out of power points on Crunch. Actually, no, it's not because of the PP on Crunch. The Golem actually just goes for Explosion. I never even knew Golem had that move, so that's actually very annoying. I end up doing something completely identically to what the Alolan Raticate had to do. After just getting loss after loss, I end up just going back and getting all of the rare candies and just going straight to level 70. So dumb to believe that I don't use my candies before Lucamine, I use them before the final trainer in the canyon. It's actually kind of nuts when you think about it. Against the Totem Komodo fight, I'm not going to use the Chopal Berry here, simply just because it's just going to go for Protect turn 1 because I'm not 4 times weak to fighting. I'm going to save the Chopal Berry for Hala in the league. And inside of the Ultra Space Wilds, the Kanto Raticate saves the game before Lucamine with a time of 2 hours, 50 minutes, and 39 seconds. So yeah, the Kanto Raticate has never been able to catch up. The Alolan version is still ahead by about 10 minutes. The second island is just where everything went wrong. And I think one of the biggest differences that led to that was just the Alolan Raticate getting stabbed with dark moves, giving it more powerful options than Hyper Fang. And that does include all those resets thanks to Hustle. But now we're in the final home stretch. We're going to go back and forth with the final 8 trainers, starting with Lucamine and the Cantonian Raticate. Right away on the Clefable, I'm going to go ahead and just use Swords Dance, as it uses Swords Dance Cotton Spore, lowering my speed. That's actually kind of annoying. I do get hit with a Moonblast though, get burned with my Flame Orb, and I'm going to start the sweep. I'm just going to spam Facade. Facade even one-shots the Beware. That's how powerful this move is right now. Unfortunately though, the Lilligant will outspeed because of Cotton Spore, and I do get a reset. When I don't get a speed drop, I am able to just completely sweep Lucamine. One problem that the Alolan Raticate's going to have here is I am going to be weak to Fairy move. The Clefable just metronomes Clanging Scales, which I believe is Komodo's signature move. I only set up to +1 though, and I'm going to use the Normalium Z and Breakneck Blitz to one-shot the Beware since it's not a contact move. Then from there, I can just use Returning Crunch on everything else. Unfortunately, during the Gladion fight, it is going to be hailing. This was because I have it set to nighttime so I can get Return, but what I now know is if I want Return but no hail, I have to set my game to be midnight. I believe I had it set to be like 9 PM or something like that, which is what's causing the hail. But thankfully, Return is going to do wonders here. I'm actually not going to be using Guts here simply just because of the hail. I did not account for this. But thankfully, Return was just fine. With the Alolan Raticate, I'm still holding on to the Normalium Z. I'm just going to use one Swords Dance and then just use Return on the Crobat right away. I do get hit with Cross Poison. Thankfully, it doesn't poison me though. Then on the Lucario, I can go ahead and just use Return. It's going to be resisted, but either way, so will Crunch. Then I can defeat the Silvally with Return as well, and the Weavile. With Cantonian Raticate, I actually do use a Heart Scale. I actually want to relearn the move Bite. I actually need this move for flinches in the league. That was the reason I needed it. Such a shame I couldn't hold on to it the entire game, but at the same time, for most of the game, I really did appreciate Crunch and Sucker Punch. Anyway, let's go fight How. The Raichu is a simple one-shot with Bite. Then on the Flareon, I'm going to go ahead and use one Swords Dance and get hit with massive damage from Flare Blitz. I can then knock it out with Return. I'm not using Guts Facade here just because of the hail. I did not account for this. But the Kamala and the Primarina go down pretty easily. The How fight for the Alolan version is very identical, except unfortunately, it seems like I'm going to need to have a Focus Blast miss, simply just because, it just does so much damage and the hail is able to kill me. Even if the hail didn't kill me, the Flareon has Quick Attack. However though, thankfully I don't need a Focus Blast miss, I can just use Sucker Punch. Then I'm going to use Breakneck Blitz on the Primarina because that's the only thing that can one-shot. Then I can easily knock out the Flareon and the Kamala. Well, if I don't constantly keep getting Hustle misses, that is. It's just so annoying having to deal with this, but at the same time, Hustle is a pretty good ability by the end of the day. The sad thing is though, I just had too many misses in that attempt, and the hail ends up killing me. If I had known to just set the game at midnight instead, the hail would not be an issue. And now with how defeated, before Alolan Raticate enters the Pokemon League, I'm going to go back to the trainer school and go quickly get myself poisoned. I'm going to need Facade for one particular fight. But either way, with both Pokemon, we're ready to take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. With Cantonian Raticate, I'm going to start with Hala holding the Chopal Berry while being burned with Facade, Attract, Swords Dance, and Bite. What I'm going to do right away is I'm going to use one Swords Dance as I get hit with Fake Out. Thankfully though, thanks to the Chopal Berry, I will not die to close combat, but the problem is the burn is still going to deal quite a lot of damage. So I probably should have thought of this fight a little better, but at the same time, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think Swords Dance is necessary here. I think I'm just underestimating the value of Facade. So in the next attempt, I just start spamming Facade. I one-shot the Hariyama, one-shot the Crabominable, one-shot the Primeape, and then after the Primeape comes the Beware. Do we one-shot the Beware? Unfortunately, we do not. That's a problem. I decide to swap my held item from the Chopal Berry to the leftovers. I'm just going to have to use Attract. I should have just done that in the first place. But with the Attract up, I'm able to get the Swords Dance off and then one-shot the Beware with Facade. Oh, it lived in red health. Okay, that was just stupid. I ended up getting very irritated and just used the Normalium Z to just knock out the Beware. We're going to switch right on over to the Alolan Raticate just because they're both starting off with Hala. I do unfortunately get knocked out right away with close combat, and you'll never guess why. That is right, everybody. Hustle accuracy drops. My plan here with Alolan Raticate is while being poisoned, Facade will one-shot everything but the Beware, but for the Beware, I try to switch to Breakneck Blitz, but this is a bad idea. The reason this is a bad idea is because I don't have Guts, so the Z move is not going to get a boost. I realized at this point I was still level 72, so I'm actually going to take a Blackout, train in the wild to 73, get myself poisoned again, and when I get back to the Beware, I, like an idiot, go for Breakneck Blitz again. It does one-shot though, but I still think Facade would have been better. And then on the Poliwrath, I get another miss thanks to Hustle. It takes me until 15 resets and 12 Blackouts into the run to finally defeat Hala. But the thing is, thanks to the massive lead the Alolan version has built up, I am still ahead of the Kanto version by leaps and bounds. Next up, they are both going to be fighting the same Elite Four member, Acerola, the Ghost-type specialist. Switching back to Cantonian Raticate, I'm still burned at this point. I'm going to go ahead and use one Swords Dance after a Fake Out. I'm still holding the leftovers though. I do get hit with Confuse Ray. I hit myself with a 30% chance, which is annoying, but Bite can simply just one-shot the Sableye. Next up is the Frostlass. I outspeed in one shot with Bite. Next up is the Delmise, same exact thing. And then after the Delmise comes the Palossand. That thing is incredibly defensive, and not even that thing can survive Bite. The Drifblim though does have Aftermath, and it brings me down to 18 hit points, but I am still able to first try and one-shot sweep her entire team. Alolan Raticate does not need a Swords Dance setup. Hustle with Crunch is just enough for her entire team. Even the Palossand. Well, if I don't get 2 misses in a row again, that is, but I do, because Hustle's downside just sucks. They are both essentially fighting the Elite Four in the exact same order. Next up, both of our contenders are going to fight Kahili, the Flying type specialist. So let's go back to Cantonian Raticate. She leads off with Skarmory. I go ahead and just use one Swords Dance as I try to use Return, but it lives in Sturdy. I should have used Bite to hope for a flinch, so that was kinda my fault, but it's not that big of a deal. Next up is the Mandibuzz. I'm just going to one-shot the rest of her team with Facade, and I have 192 speed. Unfortunately, that is slower than her Crobat, which has 196, but that Crobat is pretty incompetent. It usually likes to use Supersonic, but it actually surprised me. It went for Air Slash. Thankfully, it didn't kill though, and I'm still able to win. The Alolan version is pretty much the same thing, just replace Swords Dance with Hustle. But the question is, am I going to get a reset thanks to a Hustle miss? And the answer to that is no. Both of our contenders first try Kahili, and now both of them are going to head to the final Elite Four member, Olivia, the Rock-type specialist. She leads off with Relicanth. I'm going to go ahead and use one Bite. I hope for a flinch. I don't get it, but I do get a Hydro Pump miss instead. That's fine. I'm going to see if Facade will kill from here, and unfortunately it does not, and I do get a massive amount of damage taken from me. She does end up switching out of her lead into Lycanroc. That's kind of annoying, and I do end up dying because I was trying so hard to not need to use a Swords Dance. But I should have just used a Swords Dance and equip a Chesto Berry. That is actually not what I do though. I decide on the second attempt for some reason to use Hidden Power. Like, I get it. The Golem and the Probopass are 4 times weak, but they have Sturdy anyway. I should be using Chesto Berry with one Swords Dance and just sweeping with Bite or Facade. So yeah, this fight I was honestly playing pretty bad. On the third attempt, I am pretty much doing that exact strat, just swap out Swords Dance with Workup and swap out Bite with Hidden Power Ground. I mean, either way, I needed a Chesto Berry for this fight no matter what. The Olivia fight with Cantonian Raticate does take more attempts until I am finally able to eventually win. Just things like Sandstorm just kept knocking me out. It was so annoying. With Alolan Raticate, that strat I was talking about earlier with Swords Dance and Chesto Berry, that's the exact strat I go for. I can go ahead and just spam Crunch on most of her team, although unfortunately on the Lycanroc, you'll never guess what happened. I got a Hustle miss, and I end up living at 3 hit points. I should not have kept going though. There was no way I was going to win, especially since the Golem has Sturdy. And unfortunately, Olivia is just hard for both of these guys, but for different reasons. It does take Raticate a few more attempts to beat Olivia, but I am able to eventually knock her out, and both Pokemon are going to head to Professor Kukui. They're going to go in with sort of similar strats. The Kanto Raticate's going to go in with Leftovers, Return, Attract, Work Up, and Bite, while the Alolan one goes in with Leftovers, Return, Crunch, Bulk Up, and Attract. Essentially just swap out Work Up for Bulk Up, and swap out Bite for Crunch. But anyway, let's switch on back to the Cantonian Raticate and see how Professor Kukui goes. I am able to easily outspeed the Lycanroc. I'm going to go for a Track turn 1, simply just because I'm using Work Up. I have no idea why I'm using Work Up here instead of Swords Dance. I think this was an accident, and my theory was proven true. On the second attempt, I'm using Swords Dance instead. I actually do need +6 because I'm actually not going to be using Guts for this fight. The problem is, I take too much chip damage, and if I'm taking chip damage with Burn, the Magnezone is going to knock me out thanks to Sturdy and Thunderbolt. So that was the reason I did not want to go with Burn, and I would have preferred the constant healing with Leftovers. Thankfully though, the Magnezone is saved for last, and I do get a flinch on the Magnezone. That was actually the reason I wanted Bite. And when the Magnezone goes down, the Kanto Raticate clocks in with a real time of 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 53 seconds, with 22 resets, 9 blackouts at level 73, with a game time after the long ass credits of 11 hours and 51 minutes. Alright, time for the Alolan Raticate. I am also able to outspeed the Lycanroc as well. I did have to get more speed EVs and a plus speed nature to help with this, but I can just use Attract, set up some bulk ups, and knock out the Incineroar and the Lycanroc with Crunch. Next up is the Ninetales. I'm going to use Return for the one hit, and then the Braviary comes out, same exact thing, and then Snorlax, I'm going to just keep using Return. This feels like Gen 2 all over again. And on the Magnezone, I do misclick and go for return as I get a hustle miss with return. That is very annoying. Thankfully though, I do survive Thunderbolt at 23 hit points remaining. I'm able to outspeed, defeat the Magnezone, and clock in. With a real time of 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 42 seconds, with 18 resets, 12 blackouts at level 75, with a game time of 11 hours and 36 minutes. So in this race, by about 10 minutes, Alolan Raticate actually beats the Kanto Raticate. I did not expect these results going into this run. Even though Raticate had access to Guts, I think Hustle even though I got a bunch of resets from Hustle, I think just getting a free 50% power boost with my physical moves, in addition to getting Stab with Crunch, literally Crunch with Stab is 120 power, and I had that move before the Salazzle fight. I think those in combination with each other just really helped in the Alolan Raticate's favor, even though I had to train for extra speed. But if we take a look at how these two Pokemon get placed on my tier list, the Alolan Raticate gets placed at the bottom of the D tier, just behind Pidgeot and Fearow, and the Cantonian Raticate gets placed in the E tier. It got worse times than Lunala and Lilligant, but it did better than Simipour. The fact that it was worse than Lunala really is saying something, because Lunala had a very terrible Holo Split, just because it had to train for the first trial, essentially just because it only started with Ghost and Psychic type moves. But yeah, what I'm starting to see is that in this game, normal types are just very mediocre. My highest ranked normal type is literally Silvally in the C tier, and that was with it not allowing to use Z moves. When I eventually replay it with Z moves, it might place itself a spot in the B tier just because it has legendary-like stats. But I don't know, normal types in this game were just going pretty dang bad. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this versus race. Sorry I couldn't release this last week. My voice was kind of raspy from the allergies, and I couldn't really make myself do a voiceover. But either way, thank y'all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to check out my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon we do on stream, as well as members-only content such as both of these playthroughs unedited, and you can even hear the audio of me playing, as well as other people who happen to join in my Discord. Next week, though, we're not going to be playing with normal types. We're actually going to be moving on to poison types. We're going to be playing Arbok versus Weezing. These two Pokemon are horrendously terrible, and you guys are going to want to see their runs in Sun and Moon. It's going to be bad. I will see you all in the next video.